this first. I don't understand why I'm having trouble doing it, but I am.
Yeah, I know. We got a lot here.
We do. I read and studied and read and studied.
Oh, I guess that's not how that's going to work.
We hear anything from
I have looked at that map for the zoning,
I can go call him real quick.
like, until my eyes are gonna cross.
I'm glad I followed the planning commissioner. I'd be
Right. Well, I have
We
Clint,
still got a
like,
quorum.
okay, talk to me.
tutorial.
We do.
I
My
just kind of
pet
feel like
planning
I'm
commissioner.
40 right now. You guys are quarantining me over here in the corner.
Yes, that's
What?
it.
You're sickly. Go home.
Today at 3:30 and took a nap.
Naps are good.
It felt very nice.
I took a short one.
I have had no nap. But Clint got us a new cappuccino maker that's like all instant for Valentine's. So
Keeps you wired up.
I'm on
doesn't
my
it?
second cappuccino today.
I think we all need to just stop by Pam's house on the way.
Yeah.
You can do that if you want. We get up at 4:45. We have oat milk and regular milk.
I'll be 15 minutes late.
Okay.
When you guys go home and we won't have a quorum, we'll just close the meeting.
We have a quorum.
One of you go home, we won't.
If one of us goes home.
I feel sick.
So
Are we
Jerry's-
not having Jerry tonight?
We don't know yet.
Oh,
He's got 2 minutes.
I can
Okay.
call him if you guys want me to.
No, he'll
It's
show
fine.
up if it's, he's pretty prompt.
and we know we don't have Lisa, right?
You know what? I actually had a voicemail on my phone. Let me go check it real quick.
Okay.
Yeah. We still have a quorum, so, that's another. Lisa's out with work and Renee's in Florida.
She is? Looky her.
We're supposed to go to Arizona the spring break. I think it's not happening.
Yeah, we were gonna go too, but
Airfare.
I have plane tickets
uh-oh.
and our house rented,
Oh,
but I think it's not happening.
think you'll get your money back?
I'd be fine with the credit. Michelle tells me Delta's giving credits. Because we got $1,500 in plane tickets.
We were gonna take a train trip, but I don't wanna be stuck on a
Just want to
train.
get this meeting over with tonight.
Indeed.
Good luck, Jerry.
Well, got duct tape, I'll give 3 pieces.
Oh, listen to you,
No.
Mr. Mayor. He's feisty tonight.
Kick me out, please.
We know that's a reward, Jerry.
Year
That's
and
right.
a half.
In my life.
He's
Year and a
feisty.
half. Counting the days. Here he is.
There he is.
Long day.
It's cool.
That's good. We were hoping, you didn't show and then I'd send the other one home and we'd close.
No.
Oh well.
Okay, boss.
Don't do it this month. I have to do it next month.
Where'd he go?
That's right. And then we'll have more next month.
Where'd that boy go?
He was going to check a voicemail.
You would have thought I was going to say that about myself.
Oh, well, you're not that lucky.
You're not that lucky.
Hereby call the March 12th of 2020 of the Cedar Springs City Council to order. If you would all please rise with me and we will recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all for attending this evening. If you have a cell phone, would you please turn it to mute? Have a roll call vote at this time. Miss Atchison. Mrs. Conley.
Here.
Mr. Gross.
Here?
Mrs. Nixon.
Here.
Mrs. Powell.
Here.
Mrs. Race. Mr. Hall is here. We have Miss Atchison and Mrs. Race are absent this evening.
Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion to excuse Miss Race and Miss Atchison.
Second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor of excusing Miss Atchison and Mrs. Race signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed sign no. Motion carries. For the consent agenda, or the public comment, Mr. Womack, you care to?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As anybody who's not living under a rock today, you should be aware that the coronavirus has been in Michigan. Madam Mayor Pro Tem, you said we now have 3 confirmed cases.
Yes.
They posted a third case on michigan.gov. They didn't say where, but like 30
So,
minutes ago.
My understanding is that part of the reason the numbers appear low is because we simply haven't been testing. So I fear that that number is substantially higher at this point. The city has been working with both the county and the school district, trying to coordinate our efforts, make sure that what we're doing is the appropriate level of caution for the security of both the city, the citizens, and the people in this room. So we would ask everybody to wash your hands. I mean, that's the obvious one. I did put some CDC posters over there for people to pick up. Yeah, we're hoping that we can get through this without any deaths or injuries of any kind, but it's gonna be one of those things moving forward, so. But as far as today's agenda is concerned, it's a fairly simple agenda. I think we can get through it pretty quickly. I know that there are some discussion items that people might want to elucidate upon, and everyone will be given their opportunity to do public comment. But I think we may want to push some of these discussions either to the Planning Commission or to next month's meeting.
Thank you. Public comment. The council welcomes and encourages the public to speak during the public comment and the public hearing portion of the agenda. However, council's policy is to hear the public comment, not to act on the public comment at this time. Concerns brought before the council during the public comment portion of the agenda will be referred to the city manager for action. If, after communication with the city manager, no resolution is reached, the concerns will be elevated to the mayor and eventually to the council for action. Those citizens wishing to speak on agenda and non-agenda items will be allowed a maximum of 4 minutes each to address their concerns. This is the only time during the council meeting citizens are allowed to address the council. Please state your name and address for the record if you would like. At this time.
Would I address you guys now about that, the financial updates and whatever, or what?
Mr. Kiphart, you are a citizen. You are free to speak your 4 minutes now if you'd like. The council does have the authority to ask for comments from anybody related to any item on the agenda. But at this time, I'm not sure council is going to take any action on your item. So if you have comments, now would be the good time.
Just an update. It's overdue. Okay, first of all, I'd like to apologize that I was MIA for the last few months. I got a little spoiled with Jerry being on our board because he was kind of the go-between and the communication person, and when he decided to spend more time with his family and less time with me, I'm not sure why he decided that, but
It was a tough decision.
yeah, the communication kind of broke down a little bit, and that's 100% my fault. Anyway, so I've got your yearly numbers here. I know there was some question about finances. First of all, I made, in the interest of transparency, I don't know if I'd hand these to you,
Mayor?
Mayor. These are the last 14 months' bank statements, along
you.
with all canceled checks.
Thank you. We'll have Madam Clerk enter that.
It's a pretty small, I mean, you guys are used to dealing with millions of dollars and whatever. Our budget, to give you an idea, a little summary, our income last month, or last year, was $4,000 in cash. We take in tens of thousands of dollars in volunteer labor, but not
Sure.
money, you know. Most of what we do is volunteered labor. So it was $4,000 in actual cash brought in. Our total expenses were $4,655. Now, obviously, that looks troublesome, except that we spent $1,409 in additional equipment for the field, including a riding field striper that we bought from University of Michigan. So that's not normally an expense. Our operating expenses last year were $3,245.20. And in those bank statements, there is a comment next to every transaction telling you what it is, matching it up with the checks. So that's all of that.
Thank you.
As far as the city manager had asked me to kind of give you a rundown of what we accomplished in the last 5 years, I'll do this as quick as I can. New tower windows, all the tower windows replaced with plexiglass, new motion lights, new toilets, sinks, plumbing fixtures in all of the restrooms, in locker rooms, new stall doors, new sprinkler heads in the field, all the sprinklers were replaced, new control system for the sprinkler. It was about a 30-year-old control system, so when we did that, we went ahead and got the
Just
new,
30?
Yeah, it might be, I don't know.
Okay, that's okay.
The clock had hands. So anyway, new hot water heater and concession, new refrigerators, deep freeze, 2 deep freezes, new window screens in concession, and that was a health code requirement that we were unaware of. But anyway, they now have self-closing screens and screen doors, new deadbolt locks on every door, and that was brought on by all the break-ins we had. We haven't had a break-in now in 2 years. So they're locked from the inside with deadbolts, padlocks, and new deadbolts on the outside, okay? In addition to that, we put steel grates over top of the windows. If anybody, it's gonna be easier to break through the wall than it is any of the doors or windows at this point. Let's see, locker room concession. This year, we had all new paint on all the buildings. That's the concession, locker room, the tower, ticket booth, electrical booth, the second concession building. That was actually done by a professional painting company and completely donated. The paint was donated by Sherman-Williams, and the painting company brought their crew out, including their lifts, and did the goalposts as well, did the flag posts, all of it. So again, no money, but what's that worth? You know, I mean, I'd hate to see what that estimate would have been if we'd paid for it. Projected goals for this year, or I'm sorry, for the next 5 years, assuming that the lease is renewed. We've got the top 5 on here. We'd like to redo the inside of the locker rooms. The outsides look great now. The insides need some attention. They've been painted, but we need to really strip them down and revitalize those. We'd like track repair, possibly resurfacing. We're not committing to that because that'll take a lot of volunteered and donated stuff because we don't have the budget to completely resurface it. Continue to maintain and improve the playing surface of the field. Possibly revitalize the sand volleyball courts. I don't know if you guys know this, but there are sand volleyball courts there. You just can't see them because they're all grown over with grass. The poles are still there, though. So we're going to look into that. And the last thing was there in the concourse or the entryway, that concrete's starting to, well, not starting to, has been cracked for many years. We're looking to seal that and make that look nice again. So.
Just 30 more seconds. Could you tell us which groups are using the field? Because you represent the Friends of Skinner Field, which maintain the field itself, but
Correct.
There's Rocket Football and other groups. Could you give us a short rundown of who's using it and for what purpose?
Well, last year, there were 2 organizations that used it. Cedar Springs Youth Football is, as you'll see from the income statement, it is 95% of our revenue. They use it from July, which is our 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old flag seasons, which is the month of July. Also for their camp, the high school comes down and runs that for them. And then the tackle football, which is ages 3rd grade through 8th grade, will play their games there. Nobody practices there, but they play their games there. Last year we had a soccer tournament. Well, read my notes on the income for that. It wasn't CASA, it wasn't AYSO, it was an independent group that we're not going to name because we're still collecting on that. So anyway, it was a soccer group, a soccer tournament. Other than that, it's really the public. I mean, they walk the track. It's open to the public anytime, and at any given time, you'll see people out there using it. Maybe not this time of year. Well,
Oh, yeah, it's
this
time
week,
of
yeah,
year.
maybe, but. And I think where another one of the communication problems come in, if you're there in September, October, and you're seeing people flying around in the buildings and cleaning and doing stuff like that, they're not necessarily friends of Skinner Field unless it's myself or one of the other 3 board members. We've only got 4 at the moment. That's the football board, because they've leased it and they're there cleaning and they're doing whatever. And there's been times where conversations have happened with them and they thought they were talking to people that, they thought they were talking to Skinner Field and they were talking to football. So we want to make sure that I have a good roster to the city manager so he knows, that they're just there using it. So we've got a few irons in the fires, maybe some additional youth sports organizations using it this year, but nothing committed yet.
Great.
Very good.
Wonderful.
Can I add one more project that I think you overlooked? While I was still active in the organization, we had replaced the scoreboard with one that was donated to us.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the cost of maintaining it was more than it was valid for, and it got to the point where it wasn't worth fixing. They purchased the Rocket football teams, or league purchased the old high school scoreboard that I believe has been replaced. I haven't looked at it. I think they were using it last year, so the scoreboard has been replaced a second time since these folks have been running the field, so.
Yeah,
Wasn't going to brag about that. We were hoping it was only once, but the first one, we put about 11, that would have been 2 years ago. Put $1,100 worth of maintenance in it, and it got through 2 weekends. We can't afford to do that, as you can see, so. Then the Rocket football stepped in and said, well, we're the ones that need the scoreboard. We'll buy it and just donate it, because we're the ones getting the use out of it. So the high school replaced theirs with that big, nice one they have now. Took their digital one down, which is only, I think, 15 years old, which is actually really new for us. The one we had before still had screw-in light bulbs, so.
great. Thank you, Mr. Gephardt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Any other individuals wish to address the council at this time?
Gentlemen, I am.
Name and address for the record if you choose.
I'm sorry, what?
Name and address for the clerk if you choose to do so.
And particularly if you want a response.
Okay.
You.
I am Taylor Mrozinski. I'm with Rogue Racing Promotions. And I'm sorry.
Is he on the agenda?
Kind of, but I asked people to talk
Okay,
during the public.
go ahead.
Okay.
So I'm just going to be briefly introducing you to the Cedar Blitz gravel race that we're having here May 30th at the Cedar Springs Brewery. It is going to be a gravel bicycle race, and we're trying to make this event into a bigger community event in years to come. So right now, in its inaugural year, we are looking for support and help to fund it and help us run it. And as the years go on, as we hope it gets bigger, get more of the community involved, there would be a lot less support needed. As far as, I know you guys will be talking about things with the race there. We've been working with Cedar Springs Brewery, the Sheriff's Department, and the city to help take care of any details, the race course, other things like that. So, yeah, thank you for letting me speak.
Thank you. You are on the agenda tonight also for action item. Thank you. We have, each of the council members, you have a community event application in front of you, so. Any other persons wishing to address the council at this time? Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Sonia Cronkright, 8070 17 Mile Road, Cedar Springs, Michigan. I wrote all of you a letter, and I'm going to first of all apologize because you got my unedited version, but it is what it is. So I was going to ask if you could please move my letter to the beginning of the agenda and put it in public comments instead of having it as an afterthought at the end of the meeting, was one thing.
Correspondence.
Thank you. And also, one of my big concerns regarding the recreational marijuana facility that's now being discussed has changed from the medical marijuana facility that we heard at the last meeting, was that the business community really isn't in the loop at all on what's happening. And so this last week, I just took it upon myself to take a anonymous poll, and I went downtown, and I did not cherry pick the businesses. I just went to all the ones that had the owners present, that weren't out of town, that were open. So I didn't get to a lot of them because I only had a couple hours of time. But I wanted to let you know the result that I got from them, because a lot of us work. We run businesses, and we don't have time a lot of times to attend meetings because we're frankly running our businesses. And if you've ever ran a business, then you can relate to that. And what I found was I was only able to capture 14 opinions, and the reason why I did it anonymously was so that they could feel they could be honest. And I wasn't there representing the city council or any city government entity. I was there to help to try to be the voice for the businesses to come back to you, to be the messenger, to let you know how they were honestly feeling. And the only two questions I asked was, did they know that you guys have already had 4 meetings and you're getting ready to look at language regarding a recreational marijuana facility? And out of the 14 that I was able to capture, I only had 2 that told me they somewhat heard about something in the newspaper. No one else had any idea where this was at. Some even thought that this was a dead issue because it had been announced that it was when it first came out. The second question was, I just asked them if they were for it, against it, or they could abstain, and you know, if they didn't care either way or another, they could answer it that way too. And so out of the 14 that I got, I had 2 that were for it. I had 1 that was, it doesn't matter to me either way, and the rest of them were adamantly against it. So I just wanted to give you that feedback regarding, it just seems like a communication breakdown, probably not intentionally, but to let you know where a fraction of your businesses that I could get to in a couple of hours were standing on the issue. So the other thing is, I just want to stand and reiterate that for many reasons, I feel like only one side of that issue has been presented to the City Council, and which are the field trips to the medical marijuana facilities and the trip to Colorado with the report coming back that it was all good. And I don't know that there has been anything represented as far as the result of recreational marijuana. And I don't know if there's been...
The facility we went to is also recreational.
No, but I mean the other side of that subject, like visiting the trailer park or, you know, the results of using drugs recreationally and what it has on the devastation effect it has on families. So that's what I wanted to share with you, and I thank you all. And I thank you, Rose, for inviting me to come to council tonight. You were the only one that responded, but I really do appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other persons wishing to address the council at this time? Hearing and...
Oh, you got a couple.
Address on item 17 now, or wait until it's on the agenda?
Like every meeting we have, the council has the authority to call upon persons if they have questions that they'd like to ask of that person. Otherwise, if they have something they think is important enough, they can add it to the public comment period.
Yeah, we can, you're on the discussion time, so we can call you up then, okay?
As a business owner, I would like to address on the marijuana stuff.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure which 14 business owners she talked to, but that's here nor there. As a business owner and somebody that knows about people and their drug addictions and that, there's a lot of people that have drug addictions to sugar and starches, as well as not everybody looks at marijuana as a drug. There are a lot of people that use it for their medicine. And there are people that abuse it the same way as people that abuse alcohol, tobacco, they abuse gambling. You're going to get that no matter where you're at, no matter what the substance is. But I think it'd be a shame for the city of Cedar Springs to lose out on the tax caption that we have the ability to get and let all the other communities benefit from that and us not. Plus, it's going to bring more walkability to our downtown if we allow that in our downtown or in our community. That's just my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Okay.
We've, just so the audience knows, we've been lectured on this many, many, many times
Both sides.
in all the forums on both sides. So, you know, we'd appreciate all your comments.
But thank you for coming.
Never mind then.
No,
on,
you get to, thank you
Move
for,
on.
thank you for coming.
Let's move, go ahead.
Hi,
You
I'm
had-
Janice Boy, 8704 19 Mile Road. I've been to 2 of the meetings at the library, but I just heard tonight that there was 2 other meetings that you had that I wasn't aware of. But my opinion is my opinion, that I presented some things at the meeting I was at from medical personnel, and it said marijuana is a drug. It affects your brain. It does kill brain cells. I don't know why we're calling it recreational marijuana, because it's a drug. And like Bangor, I have a friend who lives in Bangor. She's upset because she goes down the road and she said she can smell it all the time. So I just know that we're trying to build Cedar Springs up. I've been here 40 years. And I love the things that are happening with City Impact and in Getty and different things that are building the people up. And I really believe that this is not something that will build them up. I think it takes away motivation. And I would just ask you, I would like to know why you think it would be a good thing other than the money, which Mike said at one of the meetings that he wasn't even sure we were going to get money. But what is the main reason that we want it here? Because the main reason I don't is because I think it's going to make the city worse instead of better. Okay? That's my opinion. I talked to other people about it, and everyone I talked to about it was not for it, except for the people that were in the business of doing it. And then this man right here, I heard him, but everybody I personally talked to said they didn't want it to happen, but I guess they're not aware of the meetings. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Bernadette Powell, 21 East Maple Street. I own a building there. I live in Solon Township also. I'm hoping that we can start discussing in regards to this drain commission going through our town. If we can get back on that, onto that agenda, I'm trying to figure out where our town is being drained. Thank you very much, and thanks for all your time.
Thank you, Ms. Powell.
Just a quick clarification, I think that's not us.
County.
That's
have
the
to go through
county,
the
the
county.
drain commission.
We have no say in the matter.
We don't have any
None.
authority. They just tell us.
The city people made an update on it.
Well, we're waiting for them to figure it out.
Good luck. Thank you.
Yeah, hi. My name's Ann Krajewski, and all my children went to Cedar Springs. I have grandchildren that are going to be going there. I'm a registered nurse for 35 years, and I know the medical reasons not to have marijuana. I don't think there's been enough studies. Just because it's legalized, I mean, it's studies in this community. Just because it's legalized doesn't mean it's right. And if you think that the kids aren't going to get the marijuana, you're going to walk in there. I know it's 21. They can get alcohol. They'll find someone that's 21 that'll go in there and get the marijuana. So why make it easy for them? Why put a drug facility in Cedar Springs? It's a nice, small community. It doesn't need it. And I have seen the effects that marijuana has done to people and families. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else wishing? Careful.
Careful, you don't have to hurry. It's okay. We'll wait.
Joyce Strickland, 13649 Snapdragon, Cedar Springs. I too want to say that I think it would be devastating to bring marijuana because I work, or I have friends, Byron Olson, I don't know if you know him, but he works with kids that are from the juvenile detention, kids that are in all kinds of trouble, and he said he has dealt with this so much. These kids just get into so much trouble all the time, and that it's just devastating to families. They go to jail. It just is not good. And why would we want it here? Why do we want that? Why do we want them? It's just not good for our area. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Anyone else? Seeing none,
I make one comment to each of those that have spoken. There isn't one of us on this board that have not wished for more input. I think we've been clear and transparent as far as getting it into the paper and so forth that has been discussed. Our minutes from the meetings, from each meeting that was brought up, have been in the, both broadcasted, where you could go back and follow them all, and have been in the press or in the paper that indicated what we had discussed on that time. I appreciate you coming in and speaking now. I wish somebody had been in here sooner and started to talk about it also. Not that it would have changed the fact that we're going to discuss it anyway, because it's something we need to do, okay? Thank you for all of you.
thank you. All right. No public hearings this evening, Mr. Womack?
No, sir.
Moving on to item 5, adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes or additions or?
I guess technically we should add, if we haven't already, the community event application presented for the Rogue Racing Promotions.
That's in action items.
No, so that
Okay.
is, that's a separate thing. We may want to put it at 8F
Okay,
for discussion.
You want it as a discussion item?
That's what we'll put it on the agenda.
Okay.
I'm not sure we'll
It will
necessarily.
be
have to discuss.
8F.
Correct.
okay. 8S in discussion or action or,
Discussion?
For discussion, please.
all right. Okay, any other changes or,
Not at this time.
okay, I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda with the changes presented this evening.
I'd make that motion.
Support that motion.
Okay, it's been moved and supported. Any further discussion? Have a roll call vote. Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes.
Ms. Nixon,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Hall votes yes. Adoption of the agenda. Consent agenda. Any items in there anyone wishes to discuss or need clarification on?
I'd only point out that the Nelson Fire Protection Agreement is the same as
Yeah.
the last several years. They have been informed that we'll probably see a nominal increase moving forward into the next couple years. And then the rezoning map should not be controversial at all.
Yeah, we've done that and done that.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I'd second that motion.
Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as printed. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Mrs. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes.
Ms. Nixon,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Hall votes yes. The motion carries. Moving into action items. Item A, Mr. Womack.
So we've beat this one to death as well. We've
Yes.
reviewed this a dozen times probably at this point. So and we could argue about some of the finer points, but I think it's reasonable as is.
Yeah.
We may have to adjust it at some point, but I think the policies and guidelines are pretty reasonable.
And it can be adjusted if we get there.
Certainly can, that's not a big deal. And then I did put together also amphitheater rental fees. I think those are also fairly reasonable. I think it was Brighton that I modeled that out off of. But, you know, we do want to promote the use of this facility, but we also do have ongoing maintenance costs. Now, these rental fees will never touch the maintenance costs we'll have for the building, but
We understand that.
I think it's appropriate to charge something for the use of the building.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to adopt Resolution 2020-06, a resolution to adopt the amphitheater use policy and guidelines.
I'll second that motion.
Been moved and seconded to approve item A. Any further discussion?
Only one thing, if I could. Number 19, you can see I stopped my thought partway through.
Oh,
See that?
yeah, so you did.
So I apologize. In my comments, I put the intent was to be, quote, no staining food or drink to be placed or used in the amphitheater building.
I kind of got that. Rick.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I think we've read it so many times, I just read it into it.
So we have had races, I think, use that for bananas and water and stuff, and I don't mind that. I don't want people drinking red wine out there. I don't want chili splattered on the wall. So I don't know if council wants to make that adjustment now.
I think we could leave it up to you, Mike.
I think you
I
can
think you
add,
can
you
add
can add that phrase. and it
Authorize the
will be
city
fine.
manager to make that change.
Yes, we
Correct.
will authorize.
It's been
the city
discussed enough times with all of us, so we know what you were thinking, I guess, and just read it that way.
Yep.
Yeah,
And that's a shame on us, some of us anyway.
And it's a living document.
Yeah.
It's just, things will change.
and I had no idea I would spend this much of my life talking about whether
All right.
chili splatters.
Let's, ready to vote? No further discussion, we'll call the vote. Ms. Atchison is absent, excuse me. Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Gross?
Yes,
Ms. Nixon?
Yes.
Ms. Powell?
Yes.
Mr. Hall votes yes, motion carries. Item B,
So we've discussed this a couple of times already as well. This board is generally strongly in favor of promoting events in the city. I believe that this event has the possibility of rivaling Hastings Berry-Roubaix, maybe 9 years from now. But I think contributing up to $1,500 towards the policing of that event is a smart and wise investment in our promotional dollars. And I think the business community will see a return on that. So I would ask that we contribute that amount.
what's the will of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to contribute up to $1,500 to the policing of the proposed gravel bike race.
I would second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Mr. Womack, would we want to approve or kind of tentatively approve their community event application to also with this?
I don't think we need to.
Okay.
Obviously, it's the council's policy to review things twice. Now, the sergeant is, I think he's gone down their route twice now, five times now.
Five times?
He enjoyed the race race route that much. You know, like all community events, there's things that need to be ironed out, and this isn't until May 30th.
Okay.
They are promoting the event. I think in the 3.5 years I've been here, we've turned down one event.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay,
So I don't think it's necessary. They're proceeding forward appropriately.
Okay.
sounds good. Okay, any further discussion?
My question has been, is this a nonprofit organization?
We do have the individuals in the audience, if you'd like to ask them that question.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
It's not a nonprofit organization, but we do plan on giving back to the community and finding certain ways to give back. We're still discussing on how exactly we want to do that. But especially just the biggest thing is promoting this to become a big community event.
It's fairly common in the race industry to donate back to the communities. A lot of the running races that I do, not only do they make financial contributions to various causes, but you know, the race medals that we get, a lot of racers will donate those to children in hospitals and things like that. So I have no doubt that they will be giving back to the community in some way.
Okay.
It feels very similar, I could be wrong, but it feels very similar to the snowmobile structure.
That's probably the one I wouldn't want to reference.
Well, but I mean, as far as like, it wasn't a nonprofit, but they gave back to the community.
Correct,
In theory.
In theory, correct.
Well, they said they were.
in theory.
But it's
Anyway.
that structure as opposed to like, for example, Alpha Family Walk that is a nonprofit.
True.
Yeah, but this board also hasn't ever been opposed to for-profit groups, as long as it's for the benefit of the community.
Yes.
We'll call the vote. Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Gross.
Yes.
Ms. Nixon.
Yes.
Ms. Powell.
Yes.
Mr. Hall votes yes, the motion carries. Item C.
So after last meeting, I've had some ongoing discussions with the organizer of this event, Mr. Hopkins, and with council's blessing regarding the camping and the campfires, which were my main concerns. I have no further objections to it. It seems like they're taking the appropriate due care for safety of the citizens. He, of course, is aware that that area might be used for staging purposes for the construction of the fire station. That will be up to them to determine whether it's still safe to proceed where they originally proposed. The only thing I would ask is that the fire department be given leeway to inspect the fires that are being proposed. Other than that, I have no further objections.
Will of the council.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the Cedar Springs Renaissance Fair Community Event for June 19th through June 22nd.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
I would like to know what Mr. Perry had to say, if he felt that there was a comment need to be made. If he still feels it needs to be made.
Well, yeah, the comment about with the steel and stuff, the materials from the new fire station being over in that area, if that area gets ate up with a lot of that, is there any possibility of using the other side of the creek? I know that the CBDT is talking about making the trails and stuff on the north side.
It's all one park, so I think what's feasible, you maybe have to, so
Yeah.
I don't have a problem.
Like so many other events, if things change, we can approve those administratively. This is a top-down policy decision being made by the council. The day-to-day stuff is approved through my office, which is not a big deal.
Part of that might just depend how much water there is.
Perry, I wanted to ask you on the event specifics. It says no extra bathrooms. I don't know if that's a mistake or you overlooked it, or porta potties, it says nothing.
From my interpretation, because I know the Chamber of Commerce has put $500 towards a permanent porta-john being there throughout the summer.
Okay.
And I think that there was talk with the DDA maybe doing that. I didn't know if council was going to be, but if there's already going to be at least 3 of them, they're counting the city one, that's going to be suffice. Because anytime we did Morley Park, when we'd bring 4 in there, at the end of the weekend, you really could have got away with 2.
Okay.
Yep.
I was just wondering if that was covered.
Ms. Powell, I believe it's the intention of City Hall to coordinate for 2 extra bathrooms to be next to the bathroom at the staging area. And of course, we have this beautiful library that would allow people to use the bathrooms there as well.
Yeah, when they're open.
And there's the correct, no, just kidding.
Stop it.
Moving on.
And I was hoping that we don't have to use much of that area for staging the fire department equipment and building materials, because we're going to try to use that as an event venue, and certainly don't want it torn up, but
Always,
it be repaired.
there is that, I don't know if the city or fire department, whoever's planning where that stuff is going, has considered that spot where we do the lineup for the Christmas parade, and I think for the red flannel stuff. That's city property too, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I'm sure Chief Frazier wants it built by December anyway, so it doesn't matter. All the stuff will be gone.
Well, if he has it built by June,
That's a look.
We have to approve the bid first. so I
Yeah,
wouldn't
first we
worry
got to
about
figure out how to pay for it all.
it. All right. Moving on, we have a motion to approve Cedar Springs Renaissance Fair Community Event application. Any further discussion? Mr. Hall votes yes. Ms. Powell?
Yes.
Ms. Nixon?
Yes.
Mr. Gross?
Yes.
Ms. Conley?
Yes.
Moving on, thank you. Item D, Mr. Womack.
So this was brought to me unfortunately at the last second. This is the only opportunity council will have to review this. This is an event being co-hosted, as I understand it, by the community library. I don't see anything in there that's controversial or dangerous of any way. But as it is a new event, at least as far as I'm aware, I didn't feel appropriate for me to approve it. So I bring it to council for your approval. Now, I will say one thing, and that is, this is an event that's likely to occur in the next couple of weeks. It may be a game time decision for them regarding whether the event's gonna go on due to the coronavirus outbreak.
Everything's up in the air on that, so.
Yeah. I will say that we used to have a community egg hunt that was put on by the Cedar Springs Post for years and years, probably decades. So in a sense, this feels like an event that has occurred lots.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, are you saying anything occurred in the city before August 1st of 2016?
I know that's hard
Yep.
to imagine before you came, but it did.
There's another world this side of the state. Anyway, moving on. Let's, what's the will of the council?
Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion that the Cedar Springs Public Library Easter egg hunt community event application for March 28th be approved.
I'd support that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on the egg hunt for the library? Hearing none. Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Groves,
Yes.
Ms. Nixon,
Yes.
Ms. Powell.
Yes.
Ms. Hall votes yes. There'll be a lot of kids with a sugar buzz. Moving on to discussion item, Mr. Romax.
So I also appreciate all the public comments we received today. You know, we have a standard policy for how we get these things out to the public. We have it on our website, on our Facebook page. Every time we have meetings, it's been in the newspaper multiple times. It's on their Facebook page. We do our best to get out the message without spending a lot of money. Of course, we've discussed marijuana here since November of 2018, I think. So this is not a new topic of discussion. I understand that this is one of those things that there's a high emotion on both sides. I believe that there are statements that are going to be made that are not entirely true. And we simply don't have the time to correct everything that is stated, but it's an ongoing discussion. I know the council hasn't made up their minds, which is part of the reason we continue to discuss it. One thing I would maybe suggest is to send this down to the Planning Commission and ask for comment on the zoning ordinance. We're not in a strict rush to get this passed. One thing that I do plan on doing is, after the council has looked at it today, is to forward this to the marijuana industry folks themselves for comment, because of course we'd like to hear their input as well, in addition to the comments that we hear from the public. So that would be my recommendation, is to send the zoning ordinance down to the Planning Commission for comment and probably table the regulatory licensing ordinance, or review it the first time. And
I was going to say, we're not voting on it, so
No.
it's a discussion item.
Okay, any one of the council members, you have input here, let's send it to the manager so we can get it to the Planning Commission, get their input on it, and then we can review this another day.
I would agree with the city manager's determination here.
They need-
I, for one, have not studied it well enough and long enough to make an opinion totally of it as to whether I would go and accept something like that or not. So I would like more time myself also.
Thank you. I have a general consensus, we'll send any comments to the manager.
sorry, Ms. Powell, were you?
We, if it wasn't for the fact that the majority of the people in Cedar Springs that voted to approve this, we wouldn't be talking about it. And this is where we are. We have to talk about it, and we have to study it, and we have to determine what the people voted for. And that's where we're at. We're trying to educate ourselves and do a good job and understand how everybody feels about this. But this is a democracy, and the majority rules.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment on that comment. I appreciate the fact that you mentioned with emphasis those that voted, because we've all determined that it was a rather weak voter turnout. So percentages can be somewhat skewed by the fact that people just didn't bother to vote. And that bothers me on any subject that comes up, that people don't come out and vote.
But if people don't vote,
No, we can go back and forth on this all day, and we're gonna get nowhere.
And for the time being, I think it's appropriate for the planning commission to make
That's-
a
Yeah.
recommendation on it.
Have them look at it and change it, and we'll move on.
I would just like to add one thing. There seemed to be a question about the recreational versus medical. And we, as the state law is structured right now, the medical structures for marijuana are probably going to go away. And that's why we are looking at it as recreational. Because with that passage of that law, there will probably no longer be this structure of medical marijuana. And this actually, if we're going to allow it, allows for that capture of the tax base as well, while still allowing people who previously got it as a medical process to be able to still get it that way.
Okay, thanks.
Nope.
Moving on. Okay, moving on to item B. Mr. Womack.
So, this is the draft that I put together regarding the Skinner Field lease. It's probably about 85 to 90% the same as the old one. I did put some updating in there. The council and myself have been frustrated at times with the communication that's been forthcoming from the Friends of Skinner Field. I think they mean well, and they've done good work out there. But I've put into
They're volunteers.
And they're volunteers, yes.
That's good.
And they're doing everything for the benefit of the community. But the city has to take care of our own stuff as well. And so we need better communication. So there are some things that have changed that are essentially to promote communication between the two bodies. But other than that, it's essentially what you guys had last time.
Will this lease be ready next month?
It should be, yes.
Okay. You know, they've done a good job on there, and it's, you know, it's some of our blame. We haven't pushed them to give us information, and we've all been busy, so hopefully by next month, we'll have everything ready, and we'll get this done. They've done a good job taking care of it. Any other comments? Hearing none. Moving on to C.
So I will commend the Chamber of Commerce. This is now, I believe, the third year that they've done this event. I'm sure just a couple more, it'll rival the Red Flannel Festival. But this is one of those great groundswell type communities that each little group is doing a part of it. And I've had a good time the last couple of years at this event. But it is kind of a megalith of organizing and keeping things in line. So I received 4 or 5 different submissions in the last week. It's kind of hard to stay on top of. This event's not till June. My staff is reviewing it. At this point, I would just say, take a look at it, and it'll be brought back to you in a better organized fashion.
Thank you.
Wasn't this called last year spring into summer?
Sorry, Mr. Hopkins, thank you. I think the name keeps changing. I
Okay.
don't think it really matters.
It doesn't, I'm just clarifying.
Yep. It sounds,
That it's the same thing.
it's a great event. Any other? Moving on to D, Mr. Womack.
So this is one of those kind of silly things that was just a couple days too late to be part of the map that was approved under the consent agenda. It makes perfectly reasonable sense to change that one lot from R1 to B3. That's the property that's immediately next to the Rollins. It used to be a house that has since been torn down. So I think the city clerk has a good plan for how we're going to manage that moving forward. The last map update prior to the one that we did a couple months ago was in 2007, I believe. So I'd like to get on top of that a little bit more often because the map is obviously a very important aspect of our economic development here in the community.
Sure.
So we'll, I guess, put that in our back pocket and we'll make sure that's taken care of in the due process of how we do these things.
We don't foresee a problem with that then.
I see no problems with that.
Thank you. Any comments from the members?
I didn't know if you wanted a motion today or at the next meeting.
We can.
So if-
Because I think currently it says a discussion.
You want, what do you want us to say?
Motion to approve the rezoning of 12
Okay.
West Muskegon from R1 to
I would agree with that, and I think we should, just to get it off the agenda.
Yep.
It is a housekeeping type thing, it can be done. I think all of us would be in agreement.
All right, then, Mr. Mayor, I will make a motion for, to honor the recommendation from Planning Commission to rezone 112 West Muskegon from R1 to B3.
I'd support that motion.
It's been moved and seconded to recommend the planning commission rezone 112 West Muskegon. Any further comment?
Just my understanding of the situation is that the property owner has no objection to this
No,
rezoning.
he requested.
Yeah, it was a request.
Hearing no other comment, Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes?
Ms. Nixon,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Hall votes yes, the motion carries. Item E,
So this actually I very well could have under my own authority approved of, but I received it, I think, last Thursday, which I thought was good timing for putting it in front of you guys, not necessarily because I needed your input or approval, but because sometimes it's nice to get this out to the public this way.
Absolutely.
So if council would like to approve it now, they could, otherwise I'll approve it tomorrow.
So this is a summer concert in Morley Park community event application.
Yep, so this is former Parks and Rec. They've been doing this for a number of years. It's always been a great time out there. And it's totally not gonna rival the stuff we're gonna do in the amphitheater this year.
I would let Mr. Womack approve it, it's an ongoing event.
It's an ongoing, the concerts in Morley Park have always, I can actually hear them from my house. It's kind of
I'd like to make a motion that we approve item 8E as presented.
I'd second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the summer concert for Merle Park. Any further discussion?
Just for the benefit of those following along at home, those dates are June 18th, July 16th, and August 20th.
Thank you.
They are Thursdays?
Mrs. Conley?
I don't know.
Yes.
So the city is going to be putting on an amphitheater in the Heart of Cedar Springs concert series, and that will be, I believe, Wednesdays. But these events, and we've sounded a little disorganized.
Thursdays.
'Cause this is the,
I'm confused here.
this is the finance director's baby, so.
Yes. But so that the people following along at home know, they are Thursdays.
What, there's confusion here. What are we working on?
So this is being put on by Parks and Rec, now known as North Kent Community Enrichment.
True.
The city is organizing a summer concert series to be held at the amphitheater in the Heart of Cedar Springs.
The motion we have on the floor is to approve June 8th, July 16th, and August 20th. for
June
the North.
18th, not the 8th.
So what are we doing here?
Yep, so I'm just asking for this approval at this
The
point.
North Kent Community Enrichment, former Parks
Correct.
and Rec. That's the one we're working on.
That's
Yeah,
the
we-
motion.
Okay, right now, that's the only motion on the floor.
Correct.
All right, Ms. Conley,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes?
Mrs. Nixon,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
Mr. Hall votes yes.
And for the people watching at home, those are Thursdays at Morley Park.
And then we have another item.
Communications?
So this, no, 8F,
Oh,
which we had at
F.
the beginning of the meeting, this is the community event application
Okay.
for Rogue Racing Promotions.
Right.
And as council has already approved of the up to $1,500 for policing, I think it has the makings of a great event. I think this is gonna be an ongoing event throughout the years. If I lose 15 pounds, I might compete in it myself and lose unceremoniously.
Volunteer.
But it's an ongoing effort. There are some details that still have to be wrapped up. So you will see this before May 30th again.
And then we can talk about it again.
We can talk
Thank
about it.
you. Any other comments? Anything other than,
The only comment I would have made to the gentleman that presented, and he's left, unless you can follow up for me.
No, he's here.
Okay. I've reviewed this, and because I happen to work for Nelson Township, I've asked if they had discussed it at all with you, because it does involve the roads out there, and there will be some traffic stoppage and so forth. I'm assuming, and that's not always a good thing, that you're looking for the approval from us before you address it with them, to let them know that the streets and stuff are going to be affected on those dates. If not, it's a hint that you might want to, okay? Both Nelson Township and probably Spencer Township, because it's going to wander into both of them. Okay?
Good point.
The only thing I would say is that my understanding was that these are Kent County roads, so we've been in the loop with Kent County.
It's not so much their permission, it's to make them aware.
But we were going to make them aware, yes.
Okay.
Great, good communication. Any other things on the discussion at this time? Hearing none, in the communication, we have the community event calendar, the Res Fair, the Walk for Life, the start of summer celebration. Item A and item B, we have communication with Ms. Sonia Cronkright.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just point out, and that is all communications that are
Correct.
received go into the communications.
Thank you. Any discussions on communications? Moving on to department reports. So, Mr. Womack.
I would just remind everybody to wash their hands. If you start to feel sick, please do self-quarantine. This is not something that's, at least in my opinion, just gonna be a minor issue. I think this is going to be a major issue. And as Madam Mayor Pro Tem might elucidate on, we want to flatten the curve. The longer that we can stay healthy, the less likely there's going to be a strain on hospital beds.
The less that Marty will have to come fetch people out of their houses.
Yep, so
Don't fetch them.
the city has been coordinating with, everybody we coordinate with, the county and the sheriff's department and the fire department, the library, North Kent Community of Richmond, the schools. We're all trying to be united on a front on this, and we will support the actions of the people that we're coordinating with. Other than that, I'd say things are good in the community. There's a lot of work to be done, but a lot of work is good, because that means that there's a lot of stuff going on.
Okay, thank you. Department of Public Works, Mr. LaRose. Any questions or concerns from him? Hearing none. Item C, Police Department. Sarge. Gearing up for our busy summer. Moving on to Mr. Frazier, our Fire Chief.
Chief Frazier.
I feel obligated to say something about the Easter egg hunt. I want to know who's going to clean up after the goats and the Easter bunny.
The goats?
Moving on. As I might note, we did hold a bid opening today for the fire station, and it'll be to be announced. We'll be having engineers are checking that over. Item E, Madam Clerk.
Just wanted to give you guys an update that the election on Tuesday went very well. We still kind of struggle with same-day voter registration along with clerks from across the state. It's an ongoing issue for every clerk in the state of Michigan. But overall, the day went very well.
No long lines.
Do you have any voter totals for us as far as like how many people voted and?
It's on the door.
500 people voted on election day here.
And what's that percentage-wise?
Approximately 15 to 20%, somewhere.
Yeah.
How does it relate to the last primary we had? Up or down? Don't know.
Probably a little higher.
Little higher, that's good.
No.
More people voting is good.
If you want specifics, I can bring that to next meeting.
That would be amazing. As we try to get more people to vote. Because voting is good.
Good luck. Moving on to F, Finance Director. The assistant is here this evening, the Deputy Finance Clerk. Any questions, Mrs. Neptowski? None?
I would point out that we will have our budget meeting on the 26th at 6 p.m. And we were likely to also discuss the fire station bid at that point.
Open to the public, of course, as all meetings.
Every meeting we
Every
have is
meeting.
open to the public.
Plus, we're on live.
Yes, plus you can watch it on YouTube
Okay.
if we seem contagious.
Any questions? No concerns? Code enforcement, she's been busy this month. Building inspections. And moving on to boards and commissions. We're at this portion of the council this evening, council comments. Ms. Powell.
I'm glad to see you back here. You guys are doing a wonderful job on that Skinner Field, and just glad to see it's going well. And thank you, everybody. Stay healthy if you can, and On we go.
Thank you. Ms. Conley?
Big thanks to Rebecca and all of our election team for making that all happen. We, for the first time, had no reason absentee voting, and I am confident, I don't have the numbers, but we had a lot more absentee votes that they were not allowed to actually open until after the polls closed at 8 o'clock. So at some time of stupid dark 30, she went to go drive the final results to Grand Rapids for our voting to make that happen. And I am grateful that you stayed up until, I don't know what time, 1, probably 2 in the morning, to make that all go after having gotten here at 6 or whatever in the morning that you did. So voting is a thing that we are responsible for as a city, and thank you for putting in those extra hours to make that happen.
We do process during the day for absentees.
Oh, do you?
Oh, good.
There you go.
We
There you
just
go.
can't open them before 8 a.m.
Okay.
That's a
But
good
it is a
plus.
long day.
It's a long day.
Mr. Gross?
Thank everybody who had took the time to come out here tonight and to talk. It's nice to see faces out here. Far too often we sit here, and it's nothing against Gary, but he may be the only one here that is listening to us. I'm always happy to see him here. So we do want input. We do want to know what the concerns are of everybody on each side of every item that comes up. We do try to get it out there for people to do it. It bothers me when people will come in and say, well, we didn't know about it. It's only because somebody isn't looking. The signs and the symptoms are there.
Symptoms.
The diagnosis should be able to be made, okay? As well as the flu that's going around. It's there, it needs to be recognized, and I don't think it's always been recognized to this point, and that's why it's going as far as it is, but that's my comment. Again, I'd like to thank everybody from the city and the work they do, and I appreciate it. And I am struggling a little bit with what I'm going to run or not, simply because of a question I have, and this is a comment to be made more or less to the board. I do know, because I am committed to my family, and I have a couple of grandsons that will be playing football next year on Thursday nights, that I may miss meetings simply because of that. I would like to hear from each of you after, whether you think that's something that is excusable or not. If you feel that it is not excusable, then I will excuse myself from running again. Okay? That's my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Rose. Ms. Nixon?
I would like to thank everyone who came out tonight to make comments on the marijuana issues at hand. I do know that no members of this board have any financial stake in whether it happens or it doesn't. Other than we are simply attempting to be guided by our community in what the wish is, and undoubtedly, whatever direction it ends up going, I'm certain there will be people on either side that are disappointed. All we can do is try our best to disappoint less people, if that makes sense. So I thank you so much for coming out and speaking with us, because we do very much value your input.
Thank you, Ms. Nixon. I too thank everyone for coming. We do listen. You know, this is a hard nut to crack. We've heard so much both ways, and we are listening. And I want to thank the staff and everybody for all the extra work we do, and the council members for being here, and all the extra meetings that we do. So is there any other business to be brought before this board at this time?
Not at this time.
We stand adjourned.
All right, Mr. Mayor. You can come talk to any of us. We're not in a meeting anymore.
It's in the public record.
Then, well, she's right here.
It's on the agenda.
It's in the agenda if you go online.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and read it.
Not our problem.
Well, she can read it to you if she wants.
Doesn't matter to me if you miss meetings, Gary.
You just soon I
She
did.
submitted it.
I understand.
Submitted it to the
I know where
comments.
you're coming from.
That's where it is.
I was gonna have something polite to
And
say
she
about you
could have
tonight.
read it if she wanted to, but we had it already said in the comments.
No. I appreciate all the hard work and calling you
Because
did
we
this
have to
year.
approve an
Seems there was
agenda.
no smoke.
I don't,
How long
I don't have-
before they
I don't
gonna
have the
come along and
internet
take that
on
mesh stuff
on
up?
this.
You have any idea how many times I
I mean, I
jammed
have
up
it,
this
I read it at
snowblower?
home.
I have it pulled up.
Okay, here you go.
Don't
She
break
has
loose.
it.
I have it
She
pulled
has
up.
it.